Okay. All right. So thank you for joining. This is the inaugural course for Empower Me Hub. This is going to be very casual, and clearly, you can interrupt me and use the chat or whatever you want. I did have a quick funny story to share with you guys, and you'll get a kick out of this. And so I was with my son telling him, that I was doing this course tonight and that I was nervous and it was the first one that's live. And let me see if it'll work. If not, I'll just tell you. Anyway, so I said to him, I want to have music on when people are logging in because that gets everybody in a good mood. And I said, I want to do Bruno Mars, Uptown Funk. And he's like, why that one? And I'm like, because when you were little, you loved it and you always, you didn't pronounce it right. You didn't use the word funk right. So he's like, no, Mom, I have a much, much better song for you to play. And I was like, all right. And he calls it Paradise. And I'm like, Paradise? He goes, yeah, I'll play it for you. And I'm here thinking like, Paradise, like Paradise by the Dashboard Light, or like, some 80s song or whatever. But no, this is what my child, I don't know how loud this is going to be, so you might want to lower your volume, but this is what my child thought was appropriate. Can you hear that? Oh, did you guys hear that? Were you able to hear the song? It was Gangster's Paradise. That's what he wanted me to play for you guys. And he made it a point to say, Mom, you have to say gangsta and not gangster. And I pretty much said, dude, I was like dancing on tables listening to this song while you weren't even thought of. So anyway, Jake's choice was Gangster's Paradise for tonight. My name is Dr. Natalie Pita. Not a therapist. This is not meant to be a therapy session. This specific course is on stress. So I think it's something that we can all relate to. This is not AI generated. I don't do that. You can find a list of all my sources at the end of the deck. The presentation is probably 30 to 45 minutes. You can add whatever you want to the chat box, or send me questions when we're done. So I don't like busy PowerPoints, and I don't read from them. What is stress? Stress is a natural response, right? We all agree that stress seems to be everywhere. It's at home and school and work, volunteering, and that old, there aren't enough hours in the day saying. And we're all trying to figure it out. But stress is actually a natural response to something, right? To a challenge or to a demand. It's not really a feeling. It's sort of like when you've heard fight, flight, or freeze. Stress it's ambiguous. It can come in many different ways. It can be emotional and physical or behavioral, but recognizing the signs of stress is the first step toward managing it. If I can say one thing throughout this entire course is that awareness is incredibly important. It's an inevitable part of our life, stress, whether it stems from work, again, personal relationships, daily responsibilities. Understanding how to manage it is crucial for maintaining both our mental and our physical well-being. This course is going to explore a variety of techniques and a few strategies that can help effectively cope with stress. And I'll share, some of my personal stories. And again, awareness takes the power away from stress. So we do have good stress. What is that? And have you lost your marbles, Natalie? I haven't. Good stress can involve taking a risk and experiencing the benefit. It can be where you find the lesson when you're faced with adversity. It can, improve your self-esteem or something you've accomplished. Went back to school at the ripe age of 43 for a doctorate degree. That's an example of good stress. I would never, ever, ever do it again, but it was stress that has paid off. So it's positive. Tolerable stress is where negative situation meets a healthy one. So it's the ability to find the growth in experiences, and it improves your characteristics. And then we get to the toxic stress. The toxic stress is the negative form, and this is the Oscar winner. And here we experience depravity and lack the mechanisms to deal with it. It's the inability to cope, which can cause adverse effects on the mind and the body. And the ability to control the mindset can determine what type of stress we experience. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because it's a busy one, and it's basically the neurological makeup of the stress system. And the key takeaway here is that there is a significant neurological response to stress. So when we consider stress, there's a relationship between your brain and your body. It can be good, tolerable, or toxic. The brain is always involved. You'll see that in pretty much all of my courses, I have one neurobiological slide. I'm very passionate about neuroscience, and I just think it's interesting that everything is really, the brain is like our circuit. So for the purposes of this course, I've listed 4 potential causes of stress, and there are many, many, many more. Work-related, personal, financial, and health issues. And just take a moment. You don't have to write it down. Just think of some of these. I'll give you a minute, and then we're going to delve into it in the next slide. So this graph represents an overview of factors which contribute to stress, right? Again, work-related, personal experiences, financial concerns, health issues. So what are some circumstances that cause you to have stress at work, right? Maybe it's dealing with deadlines, or with the workload, or with the workplace dynamics, right? They can contribute to stress levels. My great example is the pandemic, right? I think my stress level went from 0 to 100 during the pandemic. I worked 62 straight days, didn't see my kids for 3 weeks. That's like at that level of like unmanageable, non-sustainable stress, right? So how about conflicts with family and friends or partners? These stressors are more on the emotional turmoil. Who plays the lotto regularly, right? We have worries about money and debt and economic stability. These can all lead to chronic stress. Chronic illnesses or health concerns, either you or a loved one, can be, a significant stressor. If you're caring for an elderly family member, or if you're dealing with chronic health issues yourself. All of you know me, I had 3 spine surgeries last year. So let's discuss recognizing the symptoms a little bit. Awareness, again, that word awareness is an extraordinary proactive step in managing stress, because you can manage it before it escalates. When stress becomes overwhelming, then it can lead to some serious health issues, right? Including anxiety and depression and physical ailments, headaches, digestive problems. So understanding how stress affects you personally can help you identify the coping strategies. So I'll give you a few examples. Emotional stress, you're going to feel anxious. You're going to be irritable. You're going to have mood swings. Physical, you may have headaches, fatigue, muscle tension, issues sleeping, behavioral changes in your appetite, withdrawal from social activities. And then mental, of course, for me, it's the worst one is that heightened sense of worry and irrational decision making and just thinking negatively. One of the most effective ways to manage stress is by fostering strong relationships with friends, families, and colleagues. And a solid support network can provide emotional comfort and practical assistance during challenging times. This is something that's really saved me, is being able to pick up the phone and just vent sometimes. So step 1, reach out. We often hold in our feelings to appear strong. And this can have the opposite effect and can completely sabotage any sense of peace. So, don't hesitate to talk about your feelings with trusted individuals, because it can like enlighten your emotional load. You can consider joining clubs or organizations that align your interests, with like-minded individuals. I'm not talking about like a knitting club, not that there's anything against knitting, but maybe an activity that you would enjoy with somebody else. So like, I know pickleball is like a big thing now, and thrifting, which is always, fun. And then this last one, by volunteering. Volunteering is a funny one. There is something that occurs in your brain when you help somebody else, and it can be a very powerful tool to alleviate stress. And it doesn't have to be volunteering for like, the soup kitchen for an hour. One of my kids, they keep granola bars in their cars. And when they see a homeless person, they give them a granola bar. And just that one little act can relieve a tremendous amount of stress. I'm not gonna lie. This whole relaxation technique and mindfulness stuff, I have never believed in it. I have tried to meditate. I've done it once, but I will tell you that I have been trying really hard to do some of this. So the mindfulness and the relaxation, right, decreases stress levels. And these practices, they help you stay grounded and focused, and they allow you to manage stress more effectively. And there's a formal, psychoeducational intervention that's called mindfulness based stress reduction. And it's sort of to self regulate. And I take it back to the word awareness, right? Because when you become aware of something, then you can regulate it. I love to remind myself that feelings aren't facts. Just because you're thinking of something, perhaps a catastrophe or a future failure, doesn't mean it's right. So feelings are not facts. And then meditation. Yeah, this one, it took me, I don't know, I think I've done it once in the last 3 years. It was life changing. I did enjoy it, but it just doesn't work for me. So I do more of a meditation like that involves your mind and guided medication. It's almost like it's somebody that's telling you a story and kind of relaxes you. I mean, I've done it to go to sleep when I can't sleep. And then you can also do the mindfulness meditation, which focuses on your breath and provides more of an opportunity for you to observe your own thoughts without judgment. I have done this. I will stop when I'm feeling extremely stressed and take a deep breath, hold my breath, and then let it out, and then take another deep breath. That has so again, deep breathing exercises can help you. I was going to try a simple technique, but I'm not going to do it now. I really, it was only going to work if I can see you guys and talk you through it. So, I'll move on to self-talk and how many of you talk to yourselves, sometimes out loud and sometimes in our head. And what do you tell yourself? What do you tell yourself that you're a rock star, or do you tell yourself that you're not worthy because you didn't finish the laundry or because there are dirty dishes in the sink? When we think about self-talk, rumination is common. And rumination is just a fancy way of saying a deep thought about something. So how do we stop this thinking? One way you do it is through diversion. You stop in your tracks, whatever you're talking about, and you're saying, geez, I completely screwed this up and whatever. You're going to stop in your tracks, and I'm going to go turn on my Spotify, and I'm going to listen to Gangster's Paradise for 1 minute, and that's going to completely change my brain. You can read 5 pages of a book. You can play a word game, something that's just going to divert the thinking of you criticizing yourself or beating yourself up for something. You're going to flip that around. And then another is to allow the rumination, that deep thought, to occur. This has been very powerful for me, but only for a short period of time. So if you want to have that negative thought or that catastrophic thought or that stress, let yourself feel it. But you're going to let yourself feel it for 10, 15 minutes. And then after that, that's it. You're going to snap out of it and you're going to move on. And then lastly, you can try some distance from your emotions and stress by referring to yourself in the third person. This is kind of weird, but it does work too. So instead of saying to yourself, there's no way that I can handle this, say, you've handled much tougher situations and you've got this. See, there's a very, very big difference. So you've heard it a million times. Physical activity is one of the most effective stress relievers. Exercise releases endorphins, which are natural mood lifters. It specifically increases beta endorphins, which can increase happiness and reduce pain. So you've heard of a runner's high. Those are beta endorphins that are working on your behalf. I suggest picking a form of exercise that you enjoy because you'll be a little bit more motivated. And, I've always been the type of, if I'm going to start jogging, then I've got to jog 3 miles the first day, which is ridiculous. And I have learned, number one, I'm older now and my body tells me you can't do that, but just move, move for 5 minutes and your brain is going to feel it. Strength training too, or finding, again, enjoyable activities, dancing or hiking or playing sport, something like that. So it would be asinine to discuss stress and exercise without food consumption. And if you're like me, your relationship with food is one of love and hate. So some studies assessing the relationship between food and stress are not statistically significant. And the challenge is in the interdependencies around food and stress, right? The relationship is bidirectional. What does that mean? In other words, a poor diet can lead to obesity, which can lead to stress. And stress may lead to a poor diet, which can lead to obesity. So there's a lot of variables there that are interdependent. One other little neurological part that I'm going to talk about, the norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter and a hormone, right? It regulates that fight, flight, or freeze response. It also impacts your blood sugar, your heart rate, and your blood pressure. So if you've heard the saying, you are what you eat, it's literal. It's literal. And like in the afternoon when you want that sweet snack and all of a sudden you feel so good. And then what happens an hour later? You crash, because the crash is due to the quick, blood sugar levels decreasing again. So diet modification doesn't have to seem like an uphill battle. I'm not a dietitian, but incorporating all the veggies and lean protein and all that good stuff. A friend of mine who is a nutritionist gave me some great advice. And she said, especially me, I always have to start with like the most complicated stuff. And I would say, for 3 weeks, all I can eat is spinach and, tomatoes and whatever. And she said, for 1 week, pick one small thing that you can do. Add carrots to one of your meals. Do that for 1 week. Then for the second week, add, I don't know, stop drinking the Diet Coke. That's, whatever. So if you do it gradually, it's not about eliminating the food source. It's about just educating ourselves about what fuels the system, right? Again, it's about that awareness. So I can't make this a bigger point. Not only is sleep essential for managing stress, but quality sleep is a must. And lack of sleep can exacerbate stress and lead to a cycle of fatigue and anxiety. I am a biatch when I don't sleep. I'm short-tempered. I'm dragging all day. I just don't feel well. Your cognitive processes inflicted by stress and anxiety can negatively contribute to your sleep, right? And they cause insomnia. And that's a funny picture there, but how many of you have ever felt like you're in this vortex that's spinning out of control and you can't get out of it, right? And that's because you're in the middle of this vicious cycle, this cycle that can lead, insomnia can lead to anxiety and stress. Anxiety can lead to stress and insomnia. And you get the idea. So I'd be a hypocrite if I said I did all these things. The one that I really accomplished was establishing a routine. I work from home, so I could easily sleep in. However, even in the summer, my alarm clock is set till 6 a.m. I am a morning person. This is why by like 2 p.m. I'm ready to shut down. But it took me months to regulate the schedule, but it works. My personal, restful environment is making my home feel like an igloo. My kids freeze, but I have tons of cozy blankets. So perhaps a restful environment is, putting laundry away or something as silly. Another habit that I have that I adopted was making my bed every morning. I never used to make my bed. And there's something about, it takes 2 seconds. And there's something about when I walk into my room and the bed is made that I'm like, it's like nice and peaceful. That's something that, I never did. Okay, sorry. Then limiting screen time. And this is a funny one because I constantly tell my kids, but I need the reminder too. Like, who doesn't lay in bed and scroll? And I'm even worse because I like to read medical research on my phone. I've stopped doing it because I was getting migraines, but one of my very close friends, she charges her phone like where she has to get out of bed to get it, which I thought was really good. But that would, baby steps. I don't know if I could do that one yet. I don't know how many different times we can say this, right? There's effective time management can help reduce feelings of being overwhelmed. We have to organize our tasks and responsibilities and create a more manageable schedule. And I have that on there because so many times that I've said there's only 24 hours in a day, but it has to be literal. So sometimes something's going to have to take a back seat because there are only 24 hours in the day. Setting priorities was huge for me. I write everything down. I have brain fog, but I bought this cool notepad on Amazon, and it sort of breaks it down like, okay, these are the 3 things that I have to do today. These are the 3 things that I have to do tomorrow. And these are the 3 things that I'm going to put on my don't forget list. And I love to write, so pen to paper, I kind of have like this little thing with it. So I write it down. Once I write it down, it's out of my head. So that's helped me a lot. Okay. Hello? Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll do it for the next one. Yeah. Thank you. So tackling larger projects, right, by breaking them into manageable parts. And I'll give you an example. A few months ago, I decided to paint a wall in my office, and I decided to paint the office black. And the wall was really damaged, so it needed to be prepped. And I didn't even know where to start. So I grabbed a piece of paper and started writing everything down that I needed to do with that wall. And from moving the furniture to taping up the wall, it didn't matter how small the task was. And I did one every day. And it made the task less daunting and much more achievable. So, I mean, that really worked for me. Breaking tasks into really small steps. I use something called the 5-30-60 rule. So what's something that I can do in 5 minutes? Maybe empty the dishwasher, or it's something I can do in 30 minutes. Fold laundry, and what's something that I can do in, 60 minutes. I don't know, go take a shower. Now that, I am a professional, and I know that we only have so many hours in the day. When I worked in the office, there were days that laundry sat on my bed, like begging for me to fold it. And it wasn't a priority. It would cause me so much stress, but I didn't have the strength to do it at the end of the day. And what helped me was I just said, okay, I'm not going to fold the laundry, but instead of, beating myself up because I didn't fold the laundry, I said, you know what? I cooked my family a delicious meal. So, you sort of have to, it's that self-talk and be kind to ourselves. Recognize your limits and don't hesitate to decline additional responsibilities. This was another hard lesson for me, but it significantly decreased my stress because it allowed me more time to take care of me. By saying no to something, you've created more time for yourself. And I'll share a little bit of my personal story. Last year, I had 3 spine surgeries within 6 months, and I was on disability from work, and the pain that I felt in my body was excruciating, and I needed help getting out of bed and showering and putting shoes on. Exercise had always been my go-to for stress, and I was going crazy. So I asked myself, what can I do? And I decided that I was going to paint. I have no business painting at all, but I would do it for hours, and it kept my mind busy. And something funny is my kids would come to my house, or my sister would come to my house, my friend would come over, and we would all sit there and paint, and everybody would say, this is so relaxing. So don't be afraid to try something new. Yeah, that's important. Don't hesitate to schedule your self-care time. It is extremely important for managing stress. We have to learn how to become a little bit more selfish and take care of us. It doesn't have to be a long time. I think we get stuck in this I don't have time cycle, and what's helped me a lot is blocking my calendar. So I literally, the same way that I would schedule a meeting from, 9 to 10 in the morning, I block it. And that's for whatever I need to do. Maybe I need to go run an errand for myself. Maybe I just want to sit there and breathe. But that's my time. Yeah. Or I used to also go for a walk, and that would help too. It's just anything that you need to decompress. I will say this to whomever wants to listen. We must stop the stigma of seeking mental health support. You're not crazy if you go to therapy. You're not weak if you go to therapy. Quite the contrary. Feeling your feelings is a sign of strength, and seeking help is a sign of strength. So cognitive behavioral therapy is a therapeutic approach, and it helps, individuals identify and change negative thought patterns. It works. I've done it. I'll share another personal story. I have something called catastrophic thinking. This is where you always imagine the worst case scenario. And I used CBT to get me through it. And I can't say that I never have a catastrophic thought, but I am aware and I know how to manage it. So that whole thing is going to be another course. Stay tuned on that one. And then support groups are also helpful. I think honestly, friends do a tremendous amount of work and stress for each other. So I'm going to summarize what hopefully you've learned today. Managing stress is an ongoing process. It requires awareness, effort, the implementation of strategies. I think that you have to recognize that stress is a response. You can manage it. And by understanding, some of the causes and symptoms, you can practice some of the mindfulness and physical activity and the healthy diet. I hope you learned a little bit how the brain is connected. For whatever reason, the minute that I can see how the brain works, then I can understand it. So embrace these strategies, take proactive steps toward a more balanced and fulfilling life. Stop the stigma. Thank you for taking the course. That's my email, and peta@empowermehub.com. Also on all the social media outlets. I will leave you with my favorite quote. It is all over my house. Always remember, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. That was Christopher Robin to Winnie the Pooh. And if you're interested in any of my sources, they are all listed here too. I told you I'm not using ChatGPT. Thank you guys very, very much. Please email me, or you can go on empowermehub.com and leave a testimonial. That would be great. I would love feedback on the actual presentation, but what I really want to know is how you felt after and if you learned something new. So thank you. Go have a good rest of the week.